Let me ask you something quietly, intimately. Have you ever walked away from a woman, whether it was a date, a conversation, or just a chance encounter, and felt this electricity linger in the air long after she's gone? And then days later, maybe weeks, you hear she's still asking about you. She's still thinking about you. Why? What is it about you that doesn't leave her mind? It's not your looks, though maybe they caught her eye. It's not your job, though perhaps it impressed her. And it's not the things you said, though some of your words might echo in her thoughts. It's something deeper. It's the invisible mark you leave in the emotional fabric between two people. It's that subtle, unspoken feeling that she was seen, felt, moved. You see, in a world where everyone is talking, the man who knows how to listen, how to truly be there, becomes unforgettable. The man who doesn't perform, but resonates, who doesn't chase, but centers. And that, my friend, is what this video is about. The one reason women can't stop thinking about you. And how, when you understand it, you don't just attract women, you haunt them in the best, most tender, most powerful way. You know, the funny thing about human connection is that it rarely announces itself. It creeps in through the cracks. It's never loud or obvious. It doesn't need to be. And when a woman can't stop thinking about you, it's not because you filled the room. It's because you stayed in her mind after you left it. There's this illusion that women are thinking about the guy who's the loudest in the room, the one flexing his ambition, flashing his watch, telling the story with the biggest punchline. But no, that's rarely the man who lingers in her memory. The man she keeps thinking about is the one who made her feel something she didn't expect to feel. Something true, something unscripted. Maybe you felt it too, that moment when time bends a little, when you look at her and it's not about impressing her or analyzing her or entertaining her. It's about feeling her, witnessing her. And in that moment, she feels it too, a soft disarming, a presence that is so rare in our distracted world that it becomes magnetic. So what is it really? This one reason. Why can't she stop thinking about you? It's presence, not performance, not perfection, presence. And presence is not passive. It's not simply being there. It's about being with, not just in the room, but in the moment, fully, genuinely, vulnerably. We live in a culture of performance where men feel they have to do something to earn attention. You need to have the right line, the right job, the right body, the right lifestyle. But do you know what really breaks through all of that? It's when a man leans in, not to conquer her, but to understand her, when he listens not to reply, but to feel, when he sees beyond the mask she wears every day, the one she's learned to keep on at work, with friends, even with herself, the man who sees her underneath it. That's the man she'll think about at night. Because here's the truth, women don't fall in love with men who try to impress them. They fall in love with the man who makes them feel safe to unfold, like a letter written in cursive, unrolling line by line. And presence, it's a subtle thing. It's the way you hold eye contact, not with intensity, but with softness. It's the way you ask, "How are you?" and pause long enough to let the real answer come through. It's the way you notice the way her hands fidget when she talks about her mother. The moment you say, "You don't have to be okay right now," when the whole world expects her to be. That's presence. It's the most disarming thing in the world for a woman to feel that a man is not trying to get anything from her, not validation, not sex, not attention. He's just with her. And that is powerful, because most women walk through the world being looked at but not seen, complimented but not felt, wanted but not understood. And when you become the exception to that pattern, when you break the rhythm of all the shallow noise, you don't just become interesting, you become unforgettable. Now, this doesn't mean you have to be perfect at all this. It doesn't mean you have to be some emotional guru or deeply enlightened spiritual monk. In fact, presence is not about having all the right words. It's about knowing how to hold space for silence. It's about being secure enough in yourself that you're not afraid of her emotions or your own. The man who knows how to hold her chaos without trying to fix it, change it, or escape it, that's the man she'll think about. Not because he solved her, but because he didn't run from her. Let me tell you something most men never hear. You don't need to be the smartest man in the room to make a woman feel seen. You need to be the one who is not trying to be somewhere else. Because when you're really present with her, she will feel it in her nervous system, in her breath, in the way her voice starts to shift from defensive to curious. She will notice how her shoulders relax in your company. And she may not be able to explain it to her friends the next day, but she'll say, "There's something about him. I don't know. I just felt calm." And that is everything. Presence doesn't demand. It invites. It doesn't control. It creates safety. It doesn't need to be loud. It needs to be real. But of course, we have to talk about what kills presence. Because if you don't know what disrupts it, you might unconsciously push her away while trying to pull her close. One of the biggest destroyers of presence is agenda. The moment your energy becomes outcome-driven, when you're trying to impress her, seduce her, win her, the presence dissolves. It becomes a transaction. And women can feel this like radar, because the second you shift from being with her to trying to get something from her, the spell breaks. The connection turns into calculation, and the energy dies, and it doesn't matter how charming you are, how great the conversation is, how attractive you might be on paper. If she senses you're performing rather than feeling, she will nod, she will smile, she will laugh at your jokes, and she will forget you. But when a man shows up grounded in himself, when he's curious but not chasing, attentive but not needy, emotionally available but not emotionally chaotic, he becomes a presence, not just a person. So let me ask you this, when you're with a woman on a date, in a conversation, in a quiet moment, are you truly with her, or are you halfway in your mind, wondering if you're saying the right thing, worrying about what she thinks, trying to steer the moment? Because if you are, that's okay. So many men are conditioned to perform, to chase, to achieve a woman's affection. But you don't need to achieve anything, you need to arrive. And when you do, something remarkable happens. She relaxes, she stops performing too. And what you get is not just chemistry, it's intimacy. A woman who feels seen will naturally begin to open. She'll tell you stories she hasn't shared in years. She'll reveal things that surprise even herself, not because she's trying to impress you, but because you made it feel safe to be real. And that, my friend, is the feeling that stays with her long after your last message, your last kiss, your last glance. She'll think about you because you didn't try to conquer her. You let her exist. You let her feel you were there, truly there. And in this world, this digital, distracted, achievement-obsessed world that is a rare, exquisite gift, presence is the one reason she can't stop thinking about you. But presence isn't just one thing. It's built on something deeper, more foundational, something internal that radiates outward. So let's look a little deeper. Presence isn't just a choice in the moment. It's a reflection of your relationship with yourself. It is born from emotional security, not from technique. Because a man who doesn't know how to sit with himself will struggle to sit with a woman. If you're uncomfortable with silence when you're alone, you'll try to fill it when you're with her. If you haven't made peace with your own emotions, you'll retreat or attack when hers rise up. This is why the man who becomes unforgettable to a woman is not the one who tries to mirror her or mold himself to her. He's the man who is rooted in something unshakable, not arrogant, not cold, but quietly certain of who he is. And when she meets that energy, an energy that says, I know who I am not afraid of you, I am not trying to manipulate you, it feels like safety, like sanctuary. So let's go deeper into what this means in practice. Imagine you're sitting across from her and she suddenly goes quiet. Maybe you've asked a question that touched a sore spot, or maybe her mood changed. Most men would get nervous in that moment. They'd try to cheer her up, make a joke, change the subject, fix it. But what if you just stayed? You looked into her silence, not with fear, but with openness. You let it be what it is. That silence becomes a mirror, a container, and eventually, if she feels safe enough, she will fill that space. Maybe with truth, maybe with tears, maybe with something messy and unpolished. And when she sees that you didn't flinch, you didn't run, you didn't fill the air with meaningless words, she will begin to see you differently. Not as a guy she likes, but as a man she can trust. And that, my friend, is everything. Because women don't obsess over the man who made them laugh the most. They obsess over the man who made them feel the most safe to stop pretending. And that safety doesn't come from having all the right answers. It comes from having the emotional strength to hold space for their answers, even when they're raw or scary or unfiltered. This is where true attraction lies, not in the surface, not in the flirtation, but in the safety of emotional permission. And that kind of permission is rare. It's why when a woman finds a man who can give her that, without needing her to perform or be perfect, he becomes more than a moment. He becomes a memory, a thought she returns to again and again. Now let's talk about emotional attunement. This is a powerful, often misunderstood concept. You don't need to understand everything a woman says, but you need to attune to how she feels. And most men, when they hear that, think it's about agreeing or fixing. But attunement is deeper. It's about noticing, responding, caring about what's happening beneath her words. When she says, I'm just tired, and you can gently say, it sounds like you've been holding a lot lately, that's attunement. When she says, it's no big deal, but you lean in and say, it seems like it mattered to you. That's attunement. And that's where she'll feel you're not just present, you're connected. Attunement creates emotional intimacy. It tells her, you don't need to scream to be heard here. You don't need to spell everything out. It's not about psychic powers. It's about paying attention, listening between the lines, hearing what she's not saying out loud. A woman will think about you long after the date ends if she feels like you heard her silence, not just her stories. That's when you become more than interesting. You become intimate, not sexually, emotionally, spiritually, soulfully. And let me tell you something about women who are emotionally moved. They become mentally magnetized. Their mind doesn't let go easily. They replay the words, the look in your eyes, the feeling in their chest when you responded, not just as a man, but as a human. But here's the caveat. This depth only comes from truth. You can't fake presence. You can't pretend to care. You can't memorize these lines and say them like a script. That's not intimacy. That's manipulation. And women can feel the difference, even if they can't explain it. They might not know why you feel different from other men, but they will feel it in their body. Presence that comes from truth doesn't ask for anything. It offers, it allows, it welcomes. It says, I am here. I see you. And I am not in a rush to change you or claim you. That kind of presence becomes a gravitational pull. And this is not just romance, it's reverence. So how do you cultivate that truth within yourself? You learn to sit with yourself first, to hold your own silence, to feel your own sadness, your own joy, your own vulnerability without needing to numb or escape it. When you stop being afraid of your own emotions, you stop being afraid of hers. When you stop performing for your own validation, you stop needing women to validate you. And when that happens, when your emotional core becomes stable, you become a lighthouse in a world full of flashing lights. You become the man who doesn't flinch when she cries, the man who doesn't compete when she's strong, the man who doesn't retreat when she's angry, the man who doesn't shrink when she shines. Instead, you remain grounded, open, curious, and she will think about you, not because you were smooth or charming or better than the other men, but because she could be herself around you. And that is the most intoxicating feeling for a woman. There's also this quiet confidence that radiates from a man who knows how to hold presence. He doesn't need to prove himself. He doesn't need to dominate the conversation. He doesn't need to control where it's going. He just trusts himself and her. He knows that intimacy is not built in one grand gesture, but in 100 small moments of trust and truth and tenderness. And that kind of man, he changes the temperature of a woman's heart. So when you're walking into a conversation or a date or a relationship, ask yourself, am I coming from a place of curiosity or control? Am I here to connect or to conquer? Because the woman who keeps thinking about you doesn't do it because of what you did. She does it because of how you made her feel when you weren't trying to do anything at all. And the more you root yourself in your own emotional truth, the more present you will be, not just with women, but with life, with your work, with your purpose. And presence is always attractive. Because presence is love in action. It says, this moment matters, you matter. And when you offer that gift to a woman, she will remember. What makes a man unforgettable isn't how fast he moves, or how clever he is, or even how romantic he can be on cue. It's how deeply he can stay in himself, in the moment, in the experience of her. And so many men, good men, lose their chance at something real because they try to rush intimacy, to earn it, to prove they deserve it. But the truth is, the moment you try to prove your worth, you've already left presence. You've already stepped outside yourself and into the performance. And women can sense this shift in their bones. Because feminine energy is tuned to emotion. It is movement, intuition, flow. And when she feels your stillness, not your silence, but your stillness, she becomes curious. She softens. She starts to wonder, who is this man who doesn't need to chase me to value me? And suddenly you are not just another man. You are a space, a sanctuary. And when you create sanctuary, a woman doesn't just open her body. She opens her story. You'll hear things she's never told anyone. Not because you asked the perfect question, but because your presence said. That emotional safety becomes intimacy, and intimacy becomes memory, a visceral memory, a memory that breathes inside her even after you're gone. She thinks about you not because you said something slick or wore something nice, but because something shifted in her when she was with you. A realization, a permission, a sense of exhale. Let's talk about the difference between chemistry and resonance. Chemistry is what makes her intrigued. It's the spark, the glance, the game. Resonance is what makes her stay, or come back, or keep wondering about you when she's lying in bed with the lights off. Chemistry is the light, resonance is the echo. Presence creates resonance. That's why when you stop trying to be the man who impresses and start becoming the man who feels, who observes, who shows up consistently without theatrics, you build resonance. And she'll feel it. Even if she doesn't know why. It's not about being perfect. It's about being true. And being true means showing up with your own complexity, too. You don't have to be the strong, silent type all the time. Women don't want statues. They want connection. They want to feel you too. So when you're hurt or afraid or uncertain, let it show. Not in a way that asks her to rescue you, but in a way that says, I trust you enough to let you see me. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's a bridge. And the men women remember are the ones who cross that bridge first. Sometimes you don't need the right answer. You need the right presence. Imagine you're with her and she's telling you about something painful, her divorce, the loss of someone close, a fear she's never voiced aloud, and instead of offering advice, instead of nodding and rushing to say it'll be okay, you just hold the space, you stay quiet, you reach for her hand, you look her in the eye and you let her see that her pain is not too much for you. Do you know what happens in that moment? She imprints on you, emotionally, neurologically, spiritually. She might not even understand it at first, but she'll feel that something about you is different. Something about you felt like home. home. And once a woman experiences that level of emotional safety, you live in her memory, you live in her body, in her heart, in the quiet hours of the night when she's replaying that moment, wondering why did it feel so safe, so different. You don't have to be the richest man in the room, or the funniest, or the most confident. You have to be the realest, the one who isn't pretending, the one who doesn't disappear the moment things get real, the one who looks her in the eyes and doesn't blink when she shows him who she is. And here's something else that's rarely talked about. Women don't forget the man who honors their complexity. So often women feel flattened by the male gaze, reduced to roles, pretty, sexy, cool, smart. But what they crave is to be experienced in their wholeness, not just admired for their beauty, but understood in their contradiction, their anger, their softness, their ambition, their fear. When you can look at her and not flinch when she's messy or fierce or in her truth and still say, I see you, you become rare, because most men only want the pleasant parts of a woman, the smiles, the sweetness, the sexy. But the man she can't stop thinking about, he's the one who embraced all of her, who didn't punish her for her pain, who didn't retreat when she had an opinion, who didn't try to fix her edges. He let her be wild, he let her be still, he met her in her chaos and brought calm, not control. That's when she can exhale into you. And that is a feeling a woman will chase emotionally, mentally, even spiritually for a long, long time. So the real question isn't, what should I say to her? It's, what does my presence say? When I say nothing at all, does it say, you are a performance I'm grading? Or does it say, you can unravel here and still be loved? That's the magic. That's the memory. That's the mark that doesn't fade. I want to remind you that this isn't about learning some perfect formula. It's not about rehearsing lines or managing impressions. It's about coming home to yourself so deeply that when you're with a woman, you're not chasing her affection. You're inviting her into your calm. Because true presence doesn't hustle. It doesn't chase. It attracts through authenticity. It invites through safety. It stays through emotional integrity. And when a woman experiences that, she doesn't just notice. She remembers. So if there's one thing I want you to take from this, it's that your energy matters far more than your words. Your attention matters far more than your style. Your truth matters more than your techniques. Because women are not looking for perfect men. They're looking for real ones. There's something quietly seductive about a man who is at ease with his own depth. A man who isn't rushing toward the next thing. Who can sit in stillness without fidgeting. Who can hold a woman's gaze without the need to fill the space with noise or wit or performance. This man becomes unforgettable, not because he said more, but because he needed less. He didn't need to win her. He didn't need to impress her. He didn't even need to prove himself. And yet somehow she felt chosen. That's the paradox of presence. The less you try to prove, the more powerfully you are felt. And in that space, a woman leans in not because you chased her, but because you created something rare at emotional gravity. Women feel it like a pull, something in their body that tells them, this is different, this is safe, this is real. And you know what's behind that kind of gravity? It's a man who has met himself, who has confronted his own shadows, who's not afraid of complexity, hers or his. A man who has grieved, who has lost, who has broken and rebuilt himself without needing the world to validate every step. And when you embody that energy, a woman doesn't just see you as attractive, she sees you as anchoring. She feels like she can be strong with you, soft with you, angry with you, loving with you, and still be met with a steady gaze that says, I won't flinch, I won't leave, I'm not here just for the easy parts. Do you understand how rare that is for a woman? We live in a world of digital romance, short attention spans, ghosting games, swipes, algorithms, performance. But when a man is emotionally congruent, when his words match his energy and his intentions, he cuts through all the noise. She doesn't have to wonder what your game is, because there is no game. You're not there to win her, you're there to witness her. And that is unforgettable. Sometimes it's the way you look at her when she's not speaking, the way you pause before responding, the way you don't reach for your phone when there's a lull in the conversation. These tiny, quiet choices, they speak volumes. They say, I value this moment. I'm not elsewhere. You have all of me right now. And in those moments, something ancient and tender awakens in a woman. Her nervous system begins to trust. Her guard begins to drop. She becomes more of herself, not for your sake, for her own, because your energy gave her permission. The most memorable men are the ones who make women feel more themselves in their presence. And when a woman feels more herself, she will want to be around you. Not because you gave her something to chase, but because you offered her something to come home to. But let's go even further. Presence doesn't mean perfection. It means showing up even when it's uncomfortable. If she calls you out on something and you don't get defensive, if she expresses a fear and you don't minimize it, if she asks for space and you don't chase or collapse, those moments, those raw, unscripted, emotionally naked moments are where trust is built. And when trust is built, memory is formed, emotional memory, and that memory becomes a tether. It's what keeps her thinking of you even when logic says she shouldn't. Even if you haven't texted, even if she's trying to move on, she'll lie in bed and wonder why your presence felt so different. Why she let her guard down with you. Why your words felt like music when everyone else sounded like noise. It's because your presence stayed with her long after your body left the room. So here's what most men miss. They think presence is just about what happens in the moment, but real presence leaves a residue. An emotional fingerprint. It doesn't fade when the conversation ends. It lingers. It's not what you said, it's what you didn't need to say. It's what she felt but couldn't explain. Presence teaches a woman's nervous system to feel safe, seen, and sacred. And that's a holy thing. Because when a woman feels sacred in your presence, she'll never quite forget how it felt. You become a whisper inside her body, a softness she reaches for in harder times. You become the moment she felt most like herself. So how do you carry that kind of presence into everyday life? You stay rooted, not reactive, not dramatic, not controlling, rooted. You respond with emotional maturity. You let people reveal who they are before making them your everything. You don't need constant validation because your value isn't up for negotiation. That's the energy that allows you to be fully present. Because when you stop trying to earn love, you start being love. And the man who is love, who gives without grasping, who sees without owning, who feels without drowning, he becomes the man women dream of but rarely meet. And maybe, just maybe, that's you. Not because you're trying to be him, but because you're finally brave enough to be you. Presence is the courage to bring your whole self, not just the charming parts, the silly parts, the deep parts, the honest parts, the hurting parts, the healed parts, the man who's still learning, the man who's still opening, the man who's still walking home to himself. That man, he doesn't have to beg for a woman's attention. He becomes her emotional memory. So if she keeps thinking about you, if she keeps dreaming of you, if she keeps wondering why she felt more alive, more relaxed, more connected when you were around, it's not an accident. It's the presence you brought, the energy you offered, the soul she felt safe enough to open herself to. That's the magic you carry, not in your charm, not in your words, not in your achievements, but in your being. You see, presence isn't something you learn in a weekend. It's not a technique. It's not a checklist. It's a practice, a daily returning to yourself, to the moment, to the truth of what you feel and what you see in others. It's about learning how to hold yourself with compassion when you don't get it right and choosing to show up again anyway. And when you begin to live that way, grounded, open, emotionally honest, you become the kind of man a woman doesn't forget because you become the kind of man she didn't know still existed. You aren't chasing women anymore. You're attracting the ones who are ready to meet you where you actually live, beneath the surface, in the truth, in the quiet, in the real. And I'll tell you something else. Most women aren't walking around craving the next romantic fantasy. They're craving peace. They're craving the man who doesn't need them to shrink or smile when she doesn't feel like smiling. They want to be around a man who isn't emotionally starving or distracted or afraid of their fire. They're craving someone who can hold contradiction, joy and sadness, desire and fear, power and surrender. They want the man who doesn't shut down when things get intense, but leans in with courage. That kind of man, he's irresistible, he's rare. He becomes the story they tell their friends about years later. I don't know what it was about him, they say. I just felt seen. I could breathe. I felt like I could say anything, and he'd still be there. And that's why she can't stop thinking about you, because you didn't just show up in her life. You showed up in the moment. You didn't just touch her hand, you touched her soul. You didn't just hear her words, you held her silences. There's nothing louder than a silence that felt safe, and that is what she returns to when she thinks about you. Not just the excitement, but the peace. Not just the sparks, but the depth of what she felt when she stopped pretending, when she let go of the roles she plays for everyone else, and she got to be just her. That's not something women forget. That's something that imprints. And so if you're wondering why she hasn't moved on, if you're wondering why she keeps texting you, keeps remembering little things you said, keeps showing up in your orbit, it's not because you're the most impressive man she's ever met. It's because you were the most present. You made her feel a kind of emotional intimacy that's so rare, so raw, so real. She's not ready to let it go. And maybe you aren't either. So what do you do with that? You don't chase, you don't beg, you don't perform. You stay true, you stay open, you stay rooted, you stay in your lane. And if she circles back, and she might, you meet her where you left off. Not in need, not in fear, but in presence. Because this isn't about control, it's about connection. Real connection. And that never needs to be forced. Or maybe she doesn't come back. Maybe she wasn't meant to. That's okay too. Because the man who learns how to be present, who learns how to create that kind of resonance, won't go long without being remembered. Because presence doesn't make you attractive to just one woman. It makes you magnetic in every room, with friends, with clients, with your children, with strangers, with yourself. It radiates and people feel it. They feel it in your tone, in your pace, in your energy. You become a calming presence in a chaotic world. And people trust that, they follow that, they remember that. That's the man you are becoming, not because you're chasing approval, but because you finally come home to yourself. So take this with you. You don't need to be the smartest guy in the room. You don't need to have a six-pack or a six-figure income. You don't need to be a perfect gentleman or a bad boy or anything in between. You need to be you, fully, authentically, emotionally honest, spiritually alive and present. That's what makes her come alive. That's what she can't stop thinking about. Not the way you touched her body, the way you touched her spirit, not the way you kissed her, the way you looked at her when she was no longer performing, not the words you said, the way your silence made her feel safe. So if she can't get you out of her mind, it's not because you played the game right, it's because you didn't play at all. You were just there, fully. And there is no stronger aphrodisiac than emotional presence. It's not just sexy, it's sacred. So let this be your invitation, not to perform, but to practice presence, with your breath, with your body, with your words, with your love, with yourself. Because when you master that, she won't be the only one who can't stop thinking about you. You'll finally start seeing yourself clearly, truthfully, deeply. And that changes everything. Thank you for being here. If this spoke to you, if it awakened something in you, or reminded you of who you really are, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Let's build a space where real men gather, where honesty lives, where presence leads. And if you found value in this conversation, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Because this isn't just about dating. It's about becoming the kind of man who lives and loves with depth. Here's to becoming unforgettable, because you are fully you. And that, my friend, is everything.